I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting virtually of November 16th, 2020. It is now 8 p.m. If you would please, everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As a formality, Madam City Clerk, do we have a quorum for the record?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum this evening. The only missing council member is Councilmember Gardner, and he did call in earlier and said that he was running about 10 to 15 minutes late.
Yeah, and he did receive an email as well, at least a text. Okay, at this, I will ask if there are any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we will move on to citizen participation. Madam Clerk, is there any citizen participation?
Yes, Mayor, we did receive one comment for citizen participation this evening. So I'll go ahead and read it. And this is from Joshua Massaquoi. Hello, council members. My name is Joshua Massaquoi. I am a political affairs ambassador with the Borgen Project and a resident of Bowie. The Borgen Project is a nonprofit that works to end global poverty. I would like the council to send a joint letter to our congressional leaders urging them to support the international affairs budget. Bowie, as a diverse population of refugees and international communities living in the city, the international affairs budget will help and create institutions that will lead to development and sustainability in developing countries. Bowie residents have families that still suffer from poverty in countries around the world. Helping their families will leave Bowie residents feeling a sense of reassurance that their families will be okay. They will thank the city for its stand on ending global poverty. If you have any questions, I can be reached at gemmasaquoi@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk. Hearing no other citizen participation, we'll move on. I don't believe we have any presentations, do we, City Clerk?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we will now move on to city boards and committees. And we do have appointments this evening and a swearing in. At this time, I would like to ask those who are being sworn in on the committees, we will be doing a general swearing in of all of you. I will be reading the oath, but at the beginning, I would like you all to inject your names. And when it gets to it, if we call the committees that you will be serving on, and we will do them all jointly. If that's okay with everyone, I would ask that the City Council has recommended respective 2-year terms for the following members of these committees. For the Diversity Committee, Tamika Washington, Jessica Fuso, and Bonaventure Akinlosutu. The Education Committee, Lynette Oregio, Frank Bryan. Economic Development Committee, Arthur Rogers, Kevin Motley, and Billy Lewis. The Community Outreach Committee, Bonaventure Akinlosutu, and the Arts Committee, Joseph Wright. At this time, I would ask that you raise your right hands. I state your name.
I, Billy Lewis,
Do
Kevin Motley.
affirm Can everyone hear me? I need you to repeat after me, everyone. Now let's start that over again. Raise your right hand, and we're going to do this all together. I state your name.
I,
Jessica Fusile,
Do swear or affirm
Do swear
do swear and affirm
that I will support
that I
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
The
the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful
and that
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear
and bear allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and laws thereof,
and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently
and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office
execute the office
of regular and state committee
of regular and state committee
according to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and the laws of this state.
and the laws of this state.
On behalf of the entire City Council, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you to your appointments to the various committees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your service to our community.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now the real work begins, right?
Absolutely.
Moving from there, we will now move to council announcements. I think there's one that we're all extremely proud of, and that is on last Friday, the Bowie Police Department received this ECLIA award, or they passed their accreditation. And so with the ECLIA, as I talked with Chief Nesky and with other members of the Bowie Police Department, that's quite an accomplishment. I think there were 484 standards that they had to complete. It's so very proud for each of the men and women in the department. As it says, it kind of gives them the gold star for the police department. And so I just want to reach out and say to them, all of the men and women, Chief Nesky, and all of those who made this happen, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your support. And thank you for working so hard to get this accreditation to let others know just how accomplished our police department is and how we do hold them in a high esteem, and that they do have that gold star, so to speak, to go along with their performance in the field. Having that, I would also like to make a comment about something that we all have heard recently about but need to truly understand, and that is the increase in the COVID virus. The pandemic has not gone away, and we have seen levels rise across the nation, higher than when we first began this in March of this year. We have almost 250,000 Americans who are dead, and we reach out with our hearts to all of their families. But also, just as important, we know that we are in a new state. We're still in phase 2, but we've kind of backed it down some. I would strongly encourage everyone, particularly our businesses that will be affected, to go to the cityofbowie.org, as well as the Prince George's County websites, and look at what's available to help businesses. There are things that are going on, but also for the individuals. I want to thank the citizens of Bowie for their continued support. I mean, when you go around the city, we're one of those places where you see pretty much everyone already wearing a mask. And so we just encourage you not to fall a victim of COVID fatigue. That, as we've done in many, many times before, be it natural disasters like tornadoes, or even as we've seen as we support our men and women in the military as they support us abroad, that we as citizens of this great nation work together. Well, right now we need to work together to try and keep each other safe. I know some may find it an infringement, but I just ask that we work together for all of our best interests in wearing the masks and keeping the social distancing and washing our hands, and to simply try to avoid going out unnecessarily, but more importantly, to continue to look out for your neighbors, your friends, and your family. You know, our Neighbors Helping Neighbors programs and the other programs, our ability through our grants programs and other to try and feed residents of the city. All of these things are very, very important, but that's also the things that make Bowie such a very special place. So in my comments, I just ask that we continue to support each other. We realize that with the holidays coming up, it will be different, but we do need to keep each other safe. So with that, I will open the floor to any of the other council members who may have comments. Hearing none, I will move on now to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council
Good
and residents out there watching us on TV. I'd like to echo the Mayor's accolades to our police department for acquiring the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies accreditation. That's what the term CALIA means, in case anybody hadn't heard it. For those who don't know, this was a 4-year effort in which the leadership of this organization and our police department worked tirelessly and adjusted their operations to be in line with these CALIA's standards, and raise their standards and adjust their standards and acquire different equipment and train people, all those things that we do when you lead organizations. And Chief Nesky and Deputy Chief Preston and Lieutenant Jefferson and the other command staff did an outstanding job. This is a tremendous accomplishment. If you look in this area, less than 5% of the police departments in this area are accredited. So that's a very exceptional experience. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, City Manager. And again, thank you to the police department and all the staff who did assist as well. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have approval of the June 1st regular meeting minutes. B is approval of Proclamation P15-20. C is approval of Proclamation P16-20. D is approval of Resolution R8220. And E is approval of Resolution R85-20. I open floor for any motions.
Mr. Mayor, I second that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
It was
Hear you.
just seconding the motion.
And who moved it?
I did,
Councilmember
Mr.
Wolf.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, I'm having feedback. Can't quite hear.
Councilman Wolfley.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. I'm sorry, they were both just coming in at the same time. So it's been moved and properly seconded to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda items as listed, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same favor? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. We will now move on to old business. The detailed site plan number DSP-99003-01, the easy storage. I will turn it over to staff at this time.
Mr. Mayor, just as a point of order, that is new business, sir. That is an old business. Go right ahead.
Thank you. City manager, we have it listed as old business. Okay. The new business being the detailed site plan, DSP 99003-01, the easy storage. And we will still turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. For the record, Frank Stevens of the City Planning Staff, here tonight to review with you DSP 99003-01 for the easy storage facility. I refer to a PowerPoint show that's on the screen and also is included as attachments in our staff report. This vicinity map shows the location of the subject property, which is at the western terminus of Gallant Fox Lane. It contains 4.3 acres and is zoned I-1 light industrial. The proposal is to construct a three-story, 48,708 square foot, 478 unit addition shown on attachment 2 here in this shaded area onto the existing facility, which I'm circling right now. On October 29th, 2020, there was a virtual stakeholders meeting held regarding this DSP. We've provided a summary of that meeting on page 2 of our staff report, and there were no public attendees at that meeting. Our discussion regarding an analysis of the detailed site plan begins on page 2 of our report, where we discuss site and building data on page 3. All of the building setbacks and the height requirements comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. We also discuss on page 4 the parking, loading, circulation, and site access standards and features of this site and the proposal. The required number of on-site parking spaces and loading spaces are provided in the existing parking lot, which I'm circling now on the plan. There are no new proposed vehicular access points into the site. The existing access point off Galax Fox Lane will remain unchanged. This slide is attachment 3 in our report, and it regards a discussion of the building architecture on page 4 of the report, where we've identified the materials and colors proposed of the addition, which lies to the right of this solid line. It's a 3-story addition. You can see the continuation of the existing materials and accent features on the front or the eastern elevation of the building. This next slide is attachment 4 in our report. It's the landscape plan, and a discussion regarding landscaping begins on page 5 of our report. The project proposes 4 varieties of deciduous trees, 2 varieties of evergreen trees that are proposed to replace existing ones. All of the landscaping is native, is acceptable. There are no invasive species that are proposed as part of this project. This slide is attachment 5 in our report regarding lighting, and the discussion regarding lighting begins on page 5 of our report. There are 7 wall-mounted pack lights proposed on the addition in this vicinity here, 3 on the northern elevation and 2 on each of the side elevations. The site is well lit, and there are no changes proposed to the on-site parking lot lighting. That'll remain as it is. This slide is the next attachment in the report. Discussion regarding signage begins on page 5. The total area of the existing and proposed signage, which is 146 square feet, is well within the requirements of the zoning ordinance. A discussion regarding the stormwater management concept plan begins on page 6. That plan was approved in November of 2018 and expires in November of 2021. The final stormwater plan has also been approved, which was in March of 2019, and that's valid for 2 years. A discussion regarding woodland conservation on the property begins on page 6 of our report, and the project received a letter of exemption from Park and Planning in August of 2020, and that expires in August of 2022. We discuss master plan conformance on page 6 of our report, and based on the discussion on pages 6 and 7, the existing and proposed development conforms to the area master plan. Lastly, for the reasons stated on page 7 in our report, we recommend approval with the 2 conditions that are stated on page 7 of our report. That concludes the staff presentation, and now I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Terry Rogers, Chairman of the Bowie Advisory Planning Board, for his report on the board's meeting last Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens, and good evening to everybody. Hope everybody is doing well, and thank you for allowing me this time to go over the events that occurred on November 4th when we heard the applicant, Sienna Corporation. We heard their detailed site plan. And as Mr. Stevens stated, it was probably one of the cleanest, shortest meetings that we have entertained. There was, as he stated in the public hearing, there was no citizens participation, and there were no citizens who came before the BAPB to offer any comment on the product that's being developed. So we unanimously as a board accepted staff's report, and the applicant at that time accepted the conditions that were put forth by staff. So with that, we did have a unanimous vote for approval of, or recommendation to the council for approval of the project. And that's concluding my report. Thank you very much. Any question? All right, good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Stevens. I believe at this time I would like to open the public hearing. At this time, Madam City Clerk, do we have any comments?
No, we don't, Mayor.
Hearing no comments at this time, I would like to close the public hearing and go to our council members to see, and I will defer to our council member from District 2, Mr. Dufour, if he has any questions.
No, I don't have any questions at the moment.
No questions, no comments? I will then go to Councilwoman Ingrid Harrison at large. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't have any questions or comments at this time.
Okay. I know that Councilman Gardner at large has joined us as well. Councilman Gardner, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have any comments or questions?
No, sir, not at this time, but thank you very much for asking. No, sir.
Okay, we'll go to District 1, Councilman Stevens.
All good on my end, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll go to District 3 and Mayor Pro Tem Adrian Boafo.
None from me, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
And we will now go to our Councilwoman in District 4, Councilwoman Ndibamadu.
Nothing from me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I think we can open the floor if there are any motions.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
we have
make
to
a
let the
motion.
applicant speak, please.
I'm sorry.
Maybe we should
Did
hear,
we miss?
would you like to hear from the applicant, sir?
As I'm saying, oh,
The
there
applicant.
you are. Hello.
Please.
Go right ahead.
Hello and good evening, Mr. Mayor and distinguished members of the Bowie City Council. For the record, my name is Bradley Farrar. I'm an attorney. I represent Sienna Corporation, the applicant in this matter. First, let me congratulate the city on its recent accreditation of its police force. Certainly is something for the city to be extremely proud of. And also I want to express our deep pleasure in working with your city staff and resolving questions as they arose with regard to our detailed site plan. So we're grateful to your staff. They're to be commended, extremely professional, and they were just an absolute joy to work with on this matter. We are certainly in agreement with staff's recommendation. And we presented before the planning board. They asked very thorough probing questions of the development, and we are in agreement with the staff's recommendations as well as the two conditions. So with that being said, I don't have anything. I stand open to answer any questions that you all may have. And I should point out that with us on today's call is the Vice President of Sienna Corporation, as well as our engineers. And so we stand ready to answer any questions that you may ask of us, if you have any. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so very much. And I'm sorry we passed over you. I didn't see you initially.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, great. I will open it back up to any council members. I think we went around who may have any questions at this time. Hearing none, thank you again so very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. At this time, Madam Clerk, can we move forward on taking action at this time?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for approval of detailed site plan DSP 99003-01.
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, respond with an aye.
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 Any opposed, the same favor? Abstentions? Hearing none, it sounds as if the motion carries unanimously. And thank you so very much. And again, to our city staff, and we'd like to thank you. And to you too, Mr. Rogers, for the hard work that the committee does as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, moving to the next item, discussion of potential county roads ownership. I will turn it over to staff at this time.
Mr. Mayor, we received an assignment from, a request from Councilwoman Ndibamadu to look into the possibility of the city taking over some county roads. And we've done some preliminary quick study, both Daniel and George. But I think first we might want to hear from her so you all can understand the genesis of this whole issue.
Councilwoman?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Like our city manager, Al Lott, said, a couple of days ago, I sent an email to staff just basically looking to explore some of the potentials of us taking over some of the county roads. This actual initiative came out of a conversation that I had with one of our county elected officials who mentioned that it might be something to look into to see if we could take over some county roads and if there would be any benefits for the city to see if we could have an increase on maintenance or if we could get some revenue from those roads and just really taking a deeper exploration there. I didn't have any specific roads that I gave over to staff at the time when I sent over the email. Just wanted to get a preliminary feeling for what that might look like if we were to potentially consider taking over some county roads to kind of alleviate the maintenance delay times. So I'd love to hear from staff on what that preliminary research was. They shared some really, really interesting and really thoughtful information. So I'd love for everybody else to have that same information as well and for us to talk about it to see what that could look like. So by no means is there meant to be any action taken tonight or anything like that. I just wanted us to at least have an initial briefing on it so that we can have a better understanding. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
George, if you could, he should be on the Teams meeting there. George, if you could provide a quick review of your data that you were able to come up with about the cost of taking on roads like that.
Right, and I think Councilmember Devamatos also referring to the Assistant City Manager's email where he talked about the Highway User Revenue Fund. But the City Manager asked me if I could provide you all with a rough estimate of what it cost us to maintain streets. And so I did that basically looking at our fiscal year 2021 budget and all of those elements of the budget that are related to street maintenance. And that would include, our staffing. It would include maintenance of the vehicles that are associated with that. It would include the replacement fund for those vehicles. And so what I came up with, for a per mile annual cost is about $43,600 per mile for city streets. And that excludes streetlight maintenance and traffic signals, which adds additional funds to those. Now, that I should clarify, because the county streets inside the city limits are much heavier traffic, higher speed roads than the majority of streets that the city maintains, which are secondary residential streets. And without, a close examination of each street, it's difficult to come up with a, accurate budget. But I would my gut would tell me, and this is speaking with our maintenance superintendent as well, that maintenance costs of those county roads would be easily double to the cost that I'm talking about, because so many of our roads are, much more, minor traffic streets, maybe resurfaced every 15 years, whereas a heavy traffic street is surfaced twice as much of that with more asphalt, has a lot of marks, has a lot of marks on it, has a lot of street signs, those sorts of things. So, so just as a cost, rough idea of cost, it's a very expensive maintenance item for the city, probably in the neighborhood of $87,000 a year per mile. And then when you add streetlights to that, assume it's a street with streetlights, it would approach $100,000 a mile. And I would also want you to be aware that, certain of those streets, they would easily jump to what we call priority one for, our response, for example, salting streets. So you can imagine, right now, so all of our primary drives are priority 1 drives. And as soon as, those are the first streets that get salt when there's bad weather. And they require our biggest trucks. Well, this county streets would definitely require our biggest trucks. So most likely, if we were to take on any significant road like Old Chapel or Racetrack, it would require more equipment and more staff. And on the large scale trucks, I'm talking about big, the bigger, 33,000 plus gross vehicle weight trucks. In addition, I want you to be aware that we are, the county is staffed, on the engineering side of the house quite differently than we are, obviously. So we currently rely on professional services to help us answer whether there's a question about, some road condition issue. A lot of those things we can handle ourselves because they're roads we're very familiar with. But certain times we do have to reach out to consultants. And then obviously for traffic safety issues, we often reach out to consultants for assistance. Recently there were some questions about traffic safety on Northview Drive, and we relied on consultants for that. We don't have in-house expertise for any road that has, significant speeds and traffic on it. So, our need to rely on consultants would, for any of the larger county roads, would be, almost, we would not be able to do anything without consultant help. And then their roads are a little different. Most of their roads are open section roads, so they require a different level of maintenance. For example, they have, roadside swales. Most of the city streets don't have those, or if they do, they are fronted by a residential house, and the residents take care of those. We would have to, come up with a crew that would take care of roadside swales, for example. So I just wanted to make you aware, the city manager asked me to kind of come up with some cost figures, and I just wanted to make you aware of, what I think the Public Works Department would have to do if we were to take over maintenance of any of those roads. And I should also mention about capital work. I think if the concerns for this, some of the conditions on county roads, maybe capital level work, for example, the bottom of Mitchellville Road needs some significant improvements. And, the county's capital road improvement project kind of marches along. Right now they have one project in the city that's underway, and that's the Yorktown, the project on Racetrack Road near Yorktown Elementary School. That's a $3.5 million project that's going to take them several years to execute. So, those are big projects. Again, county is staffed with an office that takes care of their capital program and their larger maintenance projects that we just don't have that sort of stuff. So again, we would be probably shorthanded in our current staffing to take on that sort of capital work without, some additional resources and a lot of help from consultants. So I hope that's helpful information of what, I see as a public works director as, challenges that we would face if we were to take on those big streets.
Thank you. Thank you, George. I did want to add one of the elements of the question that was posed to staff was in regards to whether or not there was revenue that was available to the city for taking over the county roads. And there is, through the Highway User Revenue Program through the state of Maryland. Counties, similar to municipalities, receive a portion of motor vehicle fuel taxes from the state of Maryland that come through every time people purchase fuel for their vehicles. A portion of that tax is distributed to counties and municipalities for maintenance of roads. The way that formula works is it's based on a combination of road miles and vehicle registrations within the locality for calculating how much money is received through that program. For some information, the city anticipates to receive approximately $2.5 million in highway user revenues in this year's budget. However, our streets department is budgeted at $6.6 million this year. This includes the street resurfacing contracting, the personnel, and other items that Mr. Stefanos was referencing in his description. One of the challenges that exists with the highway user revenue funds today is we're not receiving the full allocation of highway user revenues that municipalities and counties had historically received. The last year that occurred was 2007, prior to the Great Recession. At that time, the state reallocated its funding, and municipalities and counties have since then been receiving less highway user revenues than they historically had for road maintenance. Now, this year, as was last year, local governments are receiving the highest portion of highway user revenues that they've received since 2007. However, that is not guaranteed to maintain going into the future. The current provision in the state for that is going to be sunsetting in, I believe it was 2025. And one of the main objectives that is sitting with the Maryland Municipal League right now is to secure full and permanent replacement of that funding. So one of the challenges that exists in terms of the revenue that's coming in is that it is not a stable or guaranteed source of funding going out into the future. The state has taken it away before. It is at risk going into the future as well. One of the additional challenges that we have right now, particularly with the pandemic, is that gasoline sales have reduced in this past year. So we are actually anticipating and would expect to see reduced revenues from highway user revenue coming into the future. So I'll leave it at that. If the council has any questions they'd like to ask, we'd be glad to address them.
First, I'd like to say thank you to the councilwoman for bringing this up, and I thought you did a good synopsis of leading into the discussion by city staff. I want to thank staff for their response to this and being able to do this. But at this time, I'll go back to the councilwoman from District 4 to see if she has any initial questions.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I know this could be a tricky one to answer, but I'm just curious, just based off of staff's expertise, what would prompt a county representative to think that this could be in the city's best interest? Because based off of the presentation that you kind of provided today, it doesn't seem like it would be in our best interest at this time, currently, like today or anytime in the near future, to adopt a county road. So I'm just curious, just based off of your expertise, what would be, that's my first question, why would a county representative think that it might be a better option and that the revenue might balance itself out for us to be able to take on that maintenance in an expedited fashion?
Well, the issue of one advantage would be that if we own the roads, we could control the timing associated with any maintenance and make any adjustments to the roads and not have to talk to them. Now, other than that, and the fact that, of course, it may be really difficult to get the county to give up a road to us, I'm not sure about, I can't comment on the money issue, but, you know, command and control would be the only advantage to us if we took the road. I mean, in local government, you never want to take on any infrastructure that you're not required to maintain because it's so expensive. We'd have to change the organization in public works. We'd have to add a division that just did capital projects, road construction projects, to keep up with it if we took just one of those roads that we named Racetrack or Mount Oak or one of those guys, because as George said, because they're so highly trafficked, we'd have to maintain them twice as much as we would, you know, Kingsfield Drive or someplace like that, which gets basic residential traffic. So the only advantage is the command and control of when the maintenance occurs and who does it.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. That was a really good synopsis. I've got 2 more questions for you. My next question is there anything else that you think that we might be able to do to help expedite the maintenance on some of these roads? Because I think the general concern that I hear, and you talked about Mount Oak, that's a really good example. I think the general concern that I hear from a lot of residents in District 4 is that there are some roads where improvements are not happening. And I know we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know it's difficult for everyone, but is there, besides road ownership, because I think we've kind of had some thoughts on that, but is there anything else that you could recommend that we could do to kind of move the needle on the maintenance that might need to happen on these roads in a quicker fashion in partnership with the county, or is that kind of just is where it is?
Well, I'm not sure about the partnership component. However, we could contact the department that manages the road projects and to see if we could get an updated schedule as to when things are scheduled to happen. I think the improvements that you speak of on Mount Oak are scheduled, but maybe they may not be coming along fast enough for some of the residents, and I understand that. But we do have a business operation whose mission is to coordinate with agencies like this, and we could ask them and see if we can get a contact to see specifically when those improvements are scheduled, and so we can speak more definitively to our residents and maybe try to hold the county to their schedule as best we can.
I think that would be extremely helpful if we could reach out to them and get an updated schedule on what's going on and when some of these improvements will be made. That would be super helpful. So I think that's one thing that I'd like to see happen for me. And I think most of my colleagues would agree with that. And then the last question that I have is, George, thank you so much for presenting tonight. It was very, very comprehensive, and I think I have a huge understanding on things a little bit more. You talked a lot about traffic patterns and like traffic management. I know back in 2019, I know the IT committee presented to the city council, or kind of brought forth a report to the council. And in their report, they talked about kind of just they talked about some proactive things that would help with traffic and things like that, or analyzing. Some of the stuff that they talked about was maybe perhaps equipment to collect data proactively year round to make that easier for us. And then another thing that they talked about was getting data from Google Maps, Waze, MapQuest, and things like that to be able to kind of proactively have a better understanding, so that in certain situations, when some of these concerns are coming up, we're not, and not saying that we are being reactive, but we're not having to go out and conduct a full comprehensive study and act quickly in that way. Are some of those things underway, some of their recommendations that they made to the council back in 2019? Is that anything that our Public Works Department has looked at and plans on implementing or becoming a priority over the next couple of years, or where are we on that?
So unfortunately, no, it's not. It just hasn't made it on our priority list. And you're absolutely right. When it comes to traffic questions, we're reactive. And that's kind of what we can handle right now. And I think, the reason that hasn't elevated in priority is because I'm not sure that sort of information would stand up to, if someone has a question about, hey, this street has too much traffic, we have to do a real count and study and answer it with hard data, and the traffic, typically the kind of traffic things we deal with are not, again, they're city street stuff, residential street issues. We don't get a lot of big street traffic questions, so the residential street stuff is, you put a counter out for a week and we get the results, and you got shared one, today. I know Mike shared something with you today.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I'm sorry to report that we haven't made any progress on those sort of broader, making use of, sort of the big picture traffic information, but that's where we are right now. We're still in the reactive mode.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that will be something for us to look at when the IT committee comes back in front of council in 2021. That'll be something interesting to hear more about, to see how it might be able to help you, because I know that you have the bandwidth that you have right now is the bandwidth that you have, and I really appreciate all the work that you do. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to stop talking now and let my colleagues ask questions if they have.
If I could just interject one other thing, going back to the question about the interaction with the city and the Prince George's County on road maintenance, not led by Public Works but led by the Planning Department, is the annual letter that the mayor sends to the county on transportation priorities, and that's kind of probably the most regimented sort of input I think that the city has with both state and county, is that annual priority list. And it makes, so it is a good mechanism to make sure the county is aware of the city's priorities, and hopefully they take that into account as they're trying to, manage their few dollars and the massive amounts of roads that they have to deal with.
That's a good point, George. Thank you. Councilwoman, anything else?
No, I think I've talked enough this evening. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing that up. I thought it was a good discussion. I think I would like to open it up now to any other council members who may have any questions at this point or comments.
Yeah, if I could jump in real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, council member.
Appreciate it. So thanks so much for bringing this up, Councilmember Ndebumadu. Could I just ask maybe that one of us goes back to Council Chair Turner and just inquire as to what he had in mind as far as potential revenue streams that could help fund this? Because I completely agree that the county's got a lot of different priorities when it comes to transportation. And oftentimes, our needs are not always on the high end of that list. And so if the council member has, or Councilman Turner that is, has specific ideas about where funding might come from, if we were to embark on this, that would be really, really, really helpful. But other than that, my only comment is the same that I always make these days when it comes to transportation, which to echo what staff was saying, we can pretty much count on shared revenue for things like road infrastructure to not really improve in coming years. We've been hearing from our state officials for a long time that shared revenue is going to continue to dry up, barring a significant change, which I doubt will happen. So I think we probably, for both in fairness to our residents and just for the sake of our own sanity, we may want to start planning proactively for having, few to no of those shared dollars coming from the state moving forward, which, means especially for like sidewalk and road maintenance projects that we own, we're going to need to take a look at those schedules and see how we can afford to do those moving forward without as much of that shared revenue. That being said, if Councilman Turner has an idea of how we could fund management of certain county roads, I know I got roads in Old Bowie and other parts of my district that are under state or county management. I would love for us to be able to take on some of those projects, even just small ones, to do little things we've been trying to do forever. But those are my 2 cents, and I appreciate the council member bringing this up.
Councilman Estev, I did happen to have a conversation with Chair Turner on Friday afternoon, and the revenue source that he was referencing was the highway user revenue.
So there wasn't anything new beyond that. It was just we can be the ones to go to the state.
Yes.
Continue to ask for the money.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, those dollars are going to continue to disappear. We've been hearing that for a while. And in fact, that's going to have implications for projects like 197, which have been priorities for like 25 years, 26 years now. So I think we need to be realistic, not necessarily just with takeover of roads, but with funding for existing projects. I think we're going to have to recalibrate a little bit.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that input. Any other council members have any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment if I may, Mr. Mayor.
I could not hear you.
I'd like to make a quick comment.
Yes, please go right ahead, Councilman DeFord.
Thank you. I'll just start off by saying that, like everybody else, we pay our fair share of taxes to the county. There are a number of road projects throughout the county that need attention to the county, and I can certainly understand why they'd be interested in letting us take over their responsibility, particularly since the revenue stream is going to dry up for them just as quickly as it's going to dry up for us. So as far as motive, I think that's it. The reality is we have had a number of projects that are on that priority list for quite some time. Racetrack Road, I used to live off of Racetrack Road, and people were pining for improvements for that when I first moved here some 25 years ago more. So it's finally coming, and so I'm glad to see that. But it's a matter of prioritization for the county, and I think we just need to continue to advocate on behalf of our citizens. So when we see projects that need attention, that we try and get them to the top of their list. But to me, it's clear that there's not going to be any money anywhere for this, and it's a real burden on the taxpayer to start assuming that kind of responsibility. So I think that's kind of where we are in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman. I would like to say thank you. I think the city manager made a good suggestion, and I think it's something that could help us communicate better to our citizens, is to actually get a listing of what the road improvements, the schedule that they're going to have, so that we could share that. And as the city manager said as well, be able to try and hold them a little more accountable. And that would give us a chance to really look at and be able to talk to our constituents about when we should be expecting those things. So I thought that was a good idea. Again, thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing this up. I think it was a good discussion. I would open it up to any other council members who have any comments or questions at this time.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Gardner.
Please go right ahead, Councilman Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start by saying I wanted to I understand totally Councilwoman Ndevamadu's approach to this, and it's a great education to provide not just to the council, but also to the residents of Bowie, so that they understand the responsibilities and sometimes the entanglements that we get involved with when it comes to county and city as well as state responsibilities. I really want to echo fully what Council Member Wolfley stated. It is a matter of responsibility, and oftentimes people would like to pass on their responsibilities to someone else, such as in this case, the city of Bowie. Any roads that we would take over or to manage or otherwise own would be an additional expense to the city of Bowie and to the residents. And so therefore, it's just a matter of just switching over responsibilities. Staff, Daniel and George, thank you both for the information that you provided this evening as well. And it was just a great education, a great discussion, so that those council members who aren't aware of how things work, then this helps them moving forward. But yeah, I would definitely question why or what other resources the council chair was looking at. But again, when Daniel mentioned, Assistant City Manager mentioned that he was referring to highway user funds, we're likely to get lesser funds this year based off of less people driving, less people buying gasoline, a number of reasons that affect our payout when it comes from the state as far as highway user funds. So we will be at a deficit. So it's best that we not take on any additional expenses for Bowie residents at this time. As we know, we are still in this pandemic and things look to be getting a little bit more grim than brighter. So I definitely want to say, Councilwoman Ndevamadu, great research, great topic of discussion for all of those who may not be informed as to what we need to do. But again, thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Harrison, did you have a comment you want to make?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask in regards to keeping the county accountable regarding the work that should happen at this time. What's the timeline on that? How's that going to work? I mean, so we say, okay, how do we check on that and then report back? What do you all see as that process so we can let the residents know what's going on?
Well, ma'am, it was my intent to ask our business operations manager, Matty Bizerto, and to get with Joe Minert and find out which department manages the capital projects for the roads in the city of Bowie, and establish a relationship and see if we can't get their schedule and then eventually share it with you all. That was my intent.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other comments or questions at this time? If not, again, to staff, thank you so very much, George, for the information, and all of you. Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have any questions?
Nope, not at all, Mr. Mayor. I think my colleagues got it right on this one.
Yes. Thank you all for the insights and information, and look forward to trying to get some feedback at a later date on how we might get some of that information. Again, thank you to staff, George, everyone. Appreciate your inputs. Assistant City Manager Daniel, City Manager, we do appreciate all you do.
Great. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and move to closed session. To adjourn to closed session under statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, State Government Article subsection 3-305B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice.
Been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, respond by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. It was unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. We appreciate you. Please, with the holidays coming up, as we talked about a little earlier, please be careful. Please, with COVID on the upswing, and I know it's the holidays coming up next week, Thanksgiving. We'll probably have to change some of the traditions we've had and how we do it, but please do so to make sure that we stay safe, and please continue to check on each other, check on your family, and stay in contact. And again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Take care.
Thank you. Great
Good night.
holiday, everyone.
Bye.